Welcome to Mama's Ashram, where wisdom flows, bridging east and west, the spirit grows. Voices of the ancients, stories to share. In the dance of thoughts, we find our prayer.
Give an introduction to the philosophies of the Indian thought, which begins from the Vedas and then evolves into modern philosophies. Right. So I'm just going to give an overview of all of them, and then we're going to go into detail in the next episodes into each philosophy separately.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So here it is.
Yeah, I think might be interesting for Indians, but might also be very interesting for me personally and for Westerns, because we're never introduced this kind of way in all these philosophies and all these Hindu thought. So I think it might be a very neat thing for Westerners and for Indians to have this presentation and also the coming ones.
Yeah, I would love for Indians, I would love to bust a lot of myths, a lot of misconceptions that we have for our own philosophy.
Right.
I think that's very important. And for the West, I think that is what we always do, bridge the East and the West. So it would be beautiful to give it out as much as possible into the West, North, South, East, Center, everywhere. Because I believe that the world is in a need of philosophical renaissance.
Absolutely. So right.
Okay. So let's begin. So the Vedas, as we know, are the oldest scriptures of Hindu philosophy. They are believed to be as old as 10,000 BC old. In fact, they can be older because how the Vedas came into existence was through Shruti and Smriti. That is, we had rishis who are rishis are ancient seers who can see into another realm or another dimension, or who can see the truth. And they're called mantra drishtas. So somebody who can see the mantra, which is not his own. They can hear it into their meditations, hear the commands, hear the everything that's been written in the Vedas, the rishis have heard. So the Vedas are called aparusha knowledge, aparusha gyan. That is aparusha. Aparusha is a human, is not. So not human knowledge. That which is that something that is extraterrestrial, like alien. So Vedas are alien knowledge. They're not human knowledge.
Can you say also like beyond human knowledge, beyond human capacity, because it doesn't come from rational thinking or from just awareness or mindfulness or whatever. It's like, it was visionized.
It has literally been heard by the meditators in their meditation.
All right.
And then they were passed on verbally. Like I speak to my kid, and then my kid speaks to my grandchild, and my grandchild speaks to my grandchild, and we pass this knowledge of the Vedas by singing to the next generation, and then the next generation remembers and then passes on to the next generation.
Yeah, like verbal tradition went all the way down to whoever invented it or whoever heard it the first time. And also it makes sense to put it into music and to rhyme form, because this is the easiest way for humans to remember the stuff, and all the oldest myths and the oldest legends we have are also passed down in that tradition, in rhyme form.
In fact, the Bhagavad Gita was the Geet means song. Gita means song. So most of this knowledge was sung.
Right.
And and then one of the rishis, the sages, his name is Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa, somebody who collected the Vedas and put them down. He was the first who put this knowledge together and divided it into 4 parts. So it was just one piece of information that was spoken. And then he took that spoken information and divided it into 4 parts and wrote 4 books out of it. So it was the first time somebody wrote it down, the verbal knowledge. And that is when the Vedas were written, which is about
And his
5,000
name
BC
was
old.
right, and his name was
His name was
Veda as well.
Badrayan.
Okay.
But we know him popularly as Vedavyasa. Somebody who collected the Vedas and put them down.
Somebody collected the Vedas. Okay. Yeah. It reminds me a bit of the Brothers Grimm. If you hear of all these fairy tales, now we know them as the Grimm fairy tales or Brothers Grimm fairy tales. But they did the same. They just wrote the fairy tales down, which the people remembered over generations and sung and passed down, all around Germany and Czechoslovakia and everything. Yeah.
So passing of knowledge verbally was more popular earlier. Writing is very recent, I believe.
Yeah.
And then there are the Upanishads. So the Upanishads, literally the etymology of Upanishad is Upa, closer. Upa means closer. Ni means down, and Shad means sit. So to come close and sit down to the Guru and then hear this knowledge. So the Guru used to pass this knowledge. And Upanishads are the essence of the Vedas, which are given at the end of the Vedas. So after the Vedas end, there are Upanishads.
So these are like stories, like you compare them.
They have stories. They have stories in them.
They have stories.
Yeah, they are
not all
narrations.
Stories.
Yeah, not all stories. They have narrations, like direct narrations, like this is you, this is not you. But they have stories as well.
Okay.
And since they are towards the end of the since they are towards the end of the Vedas, they are called Vedanta. Veda Anta. Ved end. So where the Vedas end, that is Upanishads. And Vedanta is one of the major schools of philosophies of India, which are called Darshanas. You were saying something before I proceed?
Yeah, I was just thinking about it, that the word Upanishad to like close and sit down and sit in front of the guru is also like already an indicator that it was passed down verbally way before it was written down.
Right. So this parampara, which is tradition, Guru Shishya Parampara, and Guru and student Parampara, was given utmost importance in ancient India. Even today, when we have to learn something that comes out of the Vedas, like astrology or music or dance, Indian classical dance, Indian classical music, we strictly follow this parampara, this tradition of respecting the Guru more than your parents. Because the literal meaning of Guru, the etymology of Guru, is somebody who takes you out of the darkness. The darshanas are popularly translated as philosophies of India. But I don't believe that darshana is philosophy is the right translation for the word darshan, because darshan literally means vision, direct vision, something that you directly perceive, directly see. Even in Hindi vocabulary, when we see an idol, we say, let me get a darshan of the idol, the darshan of Krishna, darshan of Ram. When we go to a temple and we want to see the idol, we say, let me get a darshan of him. So direct vision. So what the rishis wanted was the reader to get or the learner to get a direct vision of reality, which was philosophical in nature. So the best somebody could translate it was philosophy. But philosophy, as we know, if you have to see Western philosophies, any philosophy, hedonism or optimism, blah, 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 blah. It is not that. It is not love for knowledge, philosophia. In fact, it says that knowledge is a vritti. It is a obstacle in our spiritual journeys, knowledge. In the end, you have to give up all knowledge. So it doesn't give a lot of importance to getting knowledge and loving knowledge. But philosophy was the best they could translate. So, darshan.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it's most of the time we have this difficulty with words and translations. We have like a translation for it, but it's not exactly the same meaning as in English or in another language.
Yeah.
And we also always have this while translating. So I respect the most the people who learn like Sanskrit and ancient Greek and
Hebrew.
And Hebrew, yeah, to properly understand these texts.
And Latin, yeah.
Yeah, and all Latin. Yeah.
So, what are the Vedas? They're the oldest sacred scriptures of Hinduism. And there are 4 Vedas, as I told you, that Vedavyasa divided the knowledge into 4 parts, 4 books. The Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Samveda, and the Atharva Veda. I'll explain them later. They are considered Aparusha, as I said, not of human origin, and are revered as Shruti, something that is heard, so the rishis could hear them. They're not their own making. They heard it, and then they remembered it, and then they passed it on. And then Vedvyasa put them down in written form.
Couldn't the Shruti also mean that it was just verbally transmitted? So they heard it like from their fathers or something? Like
Shruti
they
is
heard it from their grandfather?
Yeah, so Shruti, the beginning, the rishis heard it from somewhere outside, Aparusha, outside human experience. And then they pass it on. But they heard it also. So that is also Shruti. And then when they pass it on, their next generation heard it. That is also Shruti. Yeah. So this entire tradition is called Shruti.
Interesting. And also, like, is there any, well, we can, like, if we talk spiritually, we can say, that it was like a vision, or it was like in a trance state that they hear these knowledge or whatever. But people would argue and also say, that was just like some alien beings, some supernatural, terrestrial beings, not terrestrial beings who gave this knowledge.
Yeah, this is a very believable theory, but why this is rejected is because the rishis themselves wrote that they heard it. So it is testimony. Their testimony, how they got this knowledge. So they said they heard it. Now, heard from where? Aliens? I don't know.
Okay.
But they heard it. Could be aliens. Yeah.
Yeah. Could be like ghosts, spirits,
I don't know. I have no comments on that.
Nobody knows. All right. Let's go on. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 4 Vedas. The Rig Veda, it is okay, so it is very popularly taught as Rig Veda is the oldest Veda, and then came Yajur Veda, Samveda, and Atharva Veda. But this is not chronological. Some Rig Veda, Samveda, Atharva Veda. Okay. They're not put chronologically. Yeah. So this was all one piece of knowledge, right? And then it was divided into 4 parts by Vedavyasa. But this was all just one chunk of knowledge. So it doesn't have chronology. Now, where it does have chronology is there were additions made later by the rishis themselves. And the latest additions were, and as the additions kept happening, we kept saying that this is new. So the latest additions are in Atharva Veda, which is considered the latest, the last Veda, the newest Veda. And Rig Veda is considered the oldest. And it is true to some extent that some hymns in the Rig Veda are extremely ancient. So ancient that we don't even know that how old. Maybe 20,000 BC old.
Yeah, absolutely possible. If it was an oral tradition, we don't know. Same with some, like all this myth we have is still here in the West with the story of the princess and the dragon. We don't know how old it is. It's one of the oldest stories. It's got very confused, or it gets distorted, by time. Because if you always tell us, and some people add something different or some new or whatever, they don't remember exactly, and then it gets distorted. But yeah, we don't know how old all these things are.
Right. Yeah. So the popular belief is that they're chronological. Rig Veda is the oldest and Atharvaveda is the newest. But most of the knowledge is from the same time period, which is considered 10,000 BC. So the Rig Veda is mostly just hymns.
Do you know why they say it's 10,000 BC?
Now again, just a part of the tradition. This is what we've been told through the generations. Okay. Yeah, and this is what there's also some evidence, scientific evidence. The evidence for scripture goes back to 5,000 BC old. But then when we have to apply logic, that when did writing come to being, and when did we start to lose the? So this came to being because there was a fear that this would vanish as humanity kept degrading, which did vanish. Most of the Vedas are now gone. I mean, the hymns of the Vedas and the parts of the Vedas are now gone because we had so many invaders who burnt all our libraries and took the knowledge away. Now there's like 20 to 30, now we have only 20 to 30% of what originally was.
This is also interesting because like the first writings we have, what we found in history, the first, kind of writing, cuneiform or something like with these, just like some stripes that you hammer into stone, described like deals, like someone gets 10 sheep and the other guy gets a sack of rice or whatever. Yeah, and the very late they start to write down stories and hymns and all this stuff. So it also makes you wonder, like, how long was it there before it was written down?
Yeah, well, again, it is these topics are very debated. There's a lot of debate, and especially the Vedic civilization is highly debated. Who were the Aryans, the ones who wrote the Vedas? Who were they? Were they invaders or were they indigenous Indians? There's a lot of debate around that also, but we're not getting to that. You can choose to believe the time period. You can choose to believe if Aryans existed or not. I am not concerned with that in this particular presentation because I don't want to get into controversy. So I'm just going to talk about the knowledge part of it. Okay.
Yeah, just for the information of viewers. You can all decide whatever you want.
I'm just concerned about the philosophy and my personal belief of who the Aryans were and how old are the Vedas. I keep to myself.
Right.
So the Rig Veda mostly just has hymns and prayers to the deities. So they just praised the deity, and there are like 4 main deities, which is the sun, the fire, and Rudra, which is the form of Shiva, and Vayu, which is air, and 1 or 2 more, like Soma. Soma is the drink that made them immortal, and it is basically the strongest psychedelic ever. So it made them immortal and whatnot. But now we don't have it anymore. So
do we?
Maybe Donald Trump has it. Oh, fuck it. Okay, so Yajurveda. Yajurveda. It talks about rituals and sacrifices. Samveda talks about how they were chanted. And the Samveda is also where music comes from. Samveda gives us Indian classical music, Indian classical dance. All of it comes from Samveda. And Atharvaveda is spells and prayers. And Atharvaveda also gives us architecture and economics and all of that.
Okay. And there are real spells written in there, like
spells. Yeah. So that is So this is also the form where Tantra comes out of. There is a very popular idea that Tantric lineage and Vedic lineage are separate. They became separate. But Tantra also comes out of the Vedas. Later, they had to be separated because Vedic knowledge was more popular, and then when you gave them tantric ideas, they could not digest it because not everybody is made for all sorts of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it reminds me of the PGM a bit. I don't know if you know it, the Greek magical papyri. Also very interesting. They have a lot of stuff about the Mithras cult in there and very, very strange spells. Just guys, check it out. This is weird stuff, but also has like a really profound meaning of knowledge in it where you can derive it. It's pretty cryptic and it sounds just like a really strange trip someone had, but you can find some insight in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all of the ancient scriptures sound super trippy.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So to check it out, what was it? PGM?
PGM, yeah, Greek magical papyri.
All right. Maybe we could do an episode about it later.
We will for sure.
Yeah. So getting back to the Vedas. So the Vedas talk a lot about ritual, sacrifice, but also about spiritual inquiry. Who am I? Who am I not? Where do I come from? Where will I go? How was the world created? What was before existence? All of that. Moving on. The structure of the Vedas. So the Vedas has 4 major parts, or this is for the constituents of Vedas. The first is Samhita, which are the hymns and the mantras. It's just called a Mantra Samhita. The full name of it is Mantra Samhita. Samhita is collection. So the collection of mantras and hymns. And then there is Brahman. Now the meaning of Brahman today is priestly class, Brahman.
Yeah.
But here, Brahman is the instructions to perform to chant the mantras or to perform the sacrifice or the ritual. The instructions are called Brahman. And the knower of this instruction was also called Brahman. Later, not in the Vedas. Later, they came to identify as Brahmins. Brahmins, not Brahmanas, Brahmins.
Okay. And is this already is this like the spells we talked about earlier? Could it be part of this Brahman, this ritualistic instructions?
How you perform that? Okay, the spells were given in Samhita, but how you're supposed to do that is explained in the Brahman.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay.
And this Aranyaka, it always this entire culture, Indian Vedic culture, it blows my fucking mind because Aranyakas, you see, are forest treatises, and so what Aranyak literally means forest. Aranya literally means forest, and Aranyaka is the knowledge that belongs to the forests. So the rishis went to the forests and meditated. And there they realized or put down the meaning of the rituals, the symbolism of the rituals. Why to do ritual at all? What is the meaning behind them? If I'm putting something into the fire or if I'm cutting an animal down, then what is the logic behind what is the symbology behind that? Now, Aranyakas are A, not available anymore. Some are not. Most are not. B, they were strictly meant for a certain group of people. Only those who went into the forests and strictly followed that lifestyle of giving up everything, becoming an ascetic, and live in the forests. So they went to the forests, entered the trance. And I tried reading the Aranyakas, and it says it is extremely cryptic. I couldn't understand a thing. It was like, and then we exhaled and entered the other man who inhaled. So it includes stuff like you exhale, another man inhales, and you enter his body. I don't know. It is cryptic. It could be literally that I enter another man's body, which is possible according to yoga. But I don't know.
Right.
So Aranyakas are forest treatises,
Oh,
which
okay.
talk about the symbology behind the rituals. And then there are the Upanishads. Upanishads, as I said, are towards the end of the Vedas, which are the philosophy, which is the essence of the Vedas, the knowledge essence, gyan, spiritual insights. And since they are at the end of the Vedas, they're called Vedanta. And there are 108 Upanishads.
108, mystical number, sacral number, comes down to 9. What's going on?
And about 10 principal Vedas, main are Upanishads. 10 of them are most important. The Upavedas, which is a subsidiary Vedas. So Veda literally means knowledge. And this knowledge that is derived from the bigger chunk of knowledge is called Upaveda. And they become separate studies, separate fields of study. Like Ayurveda.
Yes, we
Everybody
all know
has
the Ayurveda.
Ayurveda, yeah. Ayurveda comes out of, I believe, Atharva Veda.
But it comes out of all the Vedas. But then you have like...
Ayurveda specifically comes out of Atharva Veda.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe it has some knowledge from other Vedas as well, but mostly from Atharva Veda.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And Ayur is life. Ayu, age or life. So Ayurveda, study of life and medicine. This is even this is lost. Most of it is lost. We have some, and we practice this the most. This is the most common. These are as good as gone. The rest.
Wow.
So Dhanurveda, science of warfare and archery. This Dhanurveda has had atomic weapons, also weapons of mass destruction, which we hear of in the epics like Mahabharata, the war of Mahabharata.
Right.
This had that.
What we talked about in our Full Metal Alchemist episode. Check this out, guys. There we have a little thing at the end where we talk about the, what is it called? Brahmanstra? No. The weapon.
Brahmastra.
You remember?
Brahmastra. Yeah, Brahmastra.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the weapon. Yeah. Check that out.
Yeah. So Dhanurveda. Dhanur means Dhanur literally means bow. So you know Dhanurasan. The ones who practice asanas would know Dhanurasana is the bow pose. Dhanur literally means bow. So because war used to happen with bow and arrow, but even the arrows were atomic arrows. It destroyed cities. One arrow could destroy cities. So that is Dhanurveda. We don't have it anymore.
Intense.
Most of it we don't. Some of it we have. Some of it we do have. But most of it
were these arrows?
I did not go into the weight of the arrows or how much they could destroy. Okay.
Maybe they were missiles. But yeah, we know.
I don't know. Yeah. So Gandharva Ved. Gandharva are mythical beings who live in heavens, and they are musicians of gods who live in heavens, who live in the heaven. Gandharva.
Okay.
And Gandharva Ved is a science of Gandharva. And
it sounds already like Scandinavian, like Celtic mystic thing. Gandharva. Like Jormungandr. It sounds very similar.
Jormungandr. Okay.
Gandharva. Yeah.
Okay. Gandharva. Okay. It talks about music and performing arts. So Indian dances, Indian music comes out of this. You've done Nada Yoga, right? So even that comes out of this.
Yeah, very ancient yoga practice, one of the oldest.
Yeah.
The Nada Yoga.
Yeah. And then there is a Shilpa Shastra. This talks about economics, statecraft, and architecture. Yeah. That is self-explanatory. Architecture. So architecture, we know there's a Indian science, occult science. It's called Vastu, which is a sacred architecture. It is like feng shui.
Yeah. Okay. And what does Silbas mean? Or you don't know? Silvastra.
Shilpa.
The word.
Shilpa is crafting.
And tra is always like a vehicle, yeah, like in mantra and in tantra and in
Shastra is
okay. It's one word.
Scripture. Shastra.
Okay. All right.
So the scripture of sculptures.
All right.
But it also has
structures, maybe.
Structure. So the structure of economy, structure of a state, structure of politics. The Vedas also talk about that. Structure of a house, and that's architecture.
Interesting. Okay. Also, we have like the first teachers in the West, like Pythagoras and Plato, who started with the school of forms. Started geometry and mathematics with forms, with structures.
Yeah. And this 5,000 or maybe supposedly 10,000 BC old science talks about, because I've studied Vastu and I've read the shlokas, the scriptures myself, some of the verses, and the verses literally say that automatic doors. It talks about automatic doors. The doors we have today, sensor, and it opens on its own. It talks about automatic doors and says that they should not be installed in a residence, in a house where you and I live. So there were automatic doors, 10,000 BC. So we had that kind of sophisticated science. It talks about that. It is literally written. And even if you say that this was added later, then how later? Not now, right? Because automatic doors are like how 10 years old, 20 years old, 50 years old.
Yeah, like 50 years maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Wow. Crazy shit.
And then the Vedangas, which are the limbs of the Vedas. 6 auxiliary disciplines that support the understanding, preservation, and proper applications of the Vedas. So there's a science of pronunciation, how you pronounce it, which is Shiksha, phonetics. There's grammar, Vyakaran, rules of grammar, and Nirukta, which is etymology, something we have to do. You gave me this habit of coming up with of learning etymology. Now I'm always inquisitive or curious about.
It's so cool, man. Etymology is so cool because you start to understand the word so much deeper and from more perspectives, because you see, it's in different cultures and different languages, it's differently used, and then you can combine all this meaning of the word to form a better understanding.
Right. And then there's a Chand. Chand is also a Hindi word. A lot of these words are common in Sanskrit and Hindi. Chand is prosody, which is how much you're supposed to pause after chanting a certain word or word. So meter of Vedic hymns.
It's like a musician term to like have this proper beat,
pause, sustain. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Chand. Kalpa, which is procedures of the ritual. And Jyotish, which is astronomy and astrology. So Vedic astrology is now getting very popular.
Yeah.
Again, 10,000 BC or 5,000, 4,000, your whatever you like, your liking of time period. But anyway, whichever time period you use, there were no telescopes. And yet there was astrology and astronomy.
So well, yeah. And they do the Subsidiary astrology, I would say. Now we call it Siderian astrology. It's a bit different to the Western traditional astrology, because it's not fixed. It always looks at the stars and the movement of the sun and the moon and everything. So in this is also where the the saying "we come into the time of Aquarius" comes from, because it's sidereal astrology. If we would use the Western astrology, it would never change anything. It's fixed, 2,000 years fixed, but there's movement in the stars.
So so it's transit. It talks about transit. What the planets are like now, and what the planets were like when you were born, and at what degree were they tilted. How are you supposed to know without any telescopes in that period of time that at what angle are the positions or whatever, and how could you calculate at exactly that time when you were born? How could you know that the planets are over there?
I think you can without watching the sky with telescope and everything, but it requires like highly sophisticated mathematics, and you got to know the rules of the universe. You got to know some kind of fixed, like the speed of light or something. You got to know the fixed values of things that cannot be changed in the universe to calculate whatever is coming. So either they have like really sophisticated mathematics and know already the value of the speed of life and of gravitation and whatever, or someone told them, came down from the stars and told them.
No, again, this apparition knowledge, it came out of it came not from humans, from outside.
Okay, from humans.
But still it came just fucking crazy.
Maybe from pre-humans, maybe from apes, and they had like supervision and they could see like 3 million kilometers in the sky.
Okay, moving further. Let's not bring the apes to my culture. Upanishads, again known as the Vedanta and of the Vedas, focus on Gyan, knowledge. The Upanishads focus on only Gyan and not on rituals. The Atman, which is the self. Atman can be translated as soul, the real me. And the Brahman, which is the ultimate reality, which can be translated as God. And the teachings are in dialogue form.
Yeah, this is so interesting as well. Because when you have like the oldest philosophers in the West, like Plato and everything, they say always, and Socrates, they always say like the best form of the best expression of philosophy is in a dialogue form. You need that. You need like an listen and someone who asks and someone who answers.
Yeah,
it's the best way. Yeah.
And which is why
and also the best way to learn.
Yeah, and the culture
directly from student to teacher. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Student to teacher. Yeah. Also, the question and answer, it then evolved into Shastrat, debates, and that is how the philosophies evolved.
So true. Yeah.
So there was not just one rishi who wrote everything down, and the end. That is what we've been studying till now. No, it kept evolving. The rishis kept adding to it through debates and all of that. And there are 108 Upanishads. But there are 10 principal Upanishads, main Upanishads that every student of Indian philosophy knows, which include Isha Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, Mundak, Chandok, Priyataranyak. There's also Mandukya and Prashna Upanishad, and a few more which are very important to know for the scholar, somebody who has to study these. I can talk about some of them here. Like Katha. Katha comes from the word Katha, which is story. So all of this Upanishad is one story. Katha, one story. And
okay.
Which else? And Ken. Ken means from where. Ken literally means from who, from whom, from where, from whom. So it goes into the question of from where did we come from, and who created us, and from where did life begin. These questions.
Okay. So this is like an origin story or like a epistemology of Hindu thought.
It has stories and more stuff. It has the meaning of Om, more stuff. But this is just an introduction for those who don't know anything about Indian philosophy or who want everything about Indian philosophy in one place, just a structure, just an outline. This presentation is for them. We will get into each
detail.
of these into detail in upcoming videos. And we've already covered some philosophies. Yeah.
Which are really interesting.
Yeah. And as they come in this presentation, I'll tell you which ones we've already covered and which ones are left to be covered and which ones
we're gonna cover.
Yeah. So the core ideas of the core ideas of the Upanishads are. So there are a lot of Mahavakyas, multiple Mahavakyas. What Mahavakyas is, Maha is great and Vakya is sentence. So great sentences. There are multiple great sentences from the Upanishads, but four are main Mahavakyas, which one of those is Tat Tvam Asi. Tat means that, Tvam means you, and Asi means are. That you are.
You are that.
Which implies that you are that. You are him. You are the creator. Atman is the Brahman. There is no difference. This is the core principle, idea of the Upanishads. This is what these 108 Upanishads are trying to tell you, that you are already complete.
Yeah, beautiful. You see this in the Gnostic movements in the West.
We've done a presentation. Yeah, we've done a
real.
We've done a presentation of Gnosticism.
Yeah, it was very
Gnosticism,
similar.
Gnosticism.
Reminded me a lot of the Gnosis and the Gnosticism, because it's at its core, it talks about the same. By realizing thyself, you realize that you are already Brahma. You are.
Yeah. Aham Brahmasmi. This is also one of the Mahavakyas. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. The Upanishads say that the world is transient, and the self is eternal. So the world keeps changing, transient, but the self does not.
Makes absolutely sense. We can experience, every one of us experience that every day. The only constant is the transcendence. The only thing it really in the outside world, and the only thing it really stays the same is you, the observer.
Yeah. There's something that doesn't change. Even if you are in a bad mood or a good mood, there's somebody inside who is not changing, and everybody can experience that. But again, this is we are not going to get into that discussion. I'm just going to, present
just a quick overview.
Literature. Yeah. We do talk about stuff like this in other episodes, but this episode is not for the thinkers, just for the scholars, or just for the curious ones, inquisitive ones, those who want to know. Okay. It talks about liberation, of course. So all of these philosophies, darshanas, they all want to answer one question, which is how to be immortal or how to end suffering, which is only possible through liberation. Liberation is called moksha, which is attained through self-realization. Who am I? Once you've answered that question, you are free of suffering.
Absolutely.
And you are liberated from what? Liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So you are not born again.
You're free. You're not in the boat anymore, as Buddha used to say it. Even if you, if you realize all of that, and that you have all the, not if you realize, if you have all the knowledge in the world and know everything, you are still in the boat. and the point is to get out of the boat.
Beautiful. Interestingly, Buddha rejected the Vedas, which I'm going to get into later.
But yeah, right. But also like liberation, when we talk about that, Tantra also, where the Buddhist movement is very close to, is also said to mean the vehicle for liberation.
Yeah, there are some commonalities, but most of it was rejected. Most of the Vedas was rejected by the Buddhists. Okay. So the Upanishads encourage inquiry, meditation, and detachment. So they don't talk about ritual. Can you see my screen? Because I lagged for a second.
Yeah, I see out everything. It's all good.
Okay. So coming to the Darshanas. I did not do justice to the Upanishad part. There is a lot to be talked about, but I cannot put everything in just the introduction, right? Maybe in a separate video, I'll go deep into the Upanishads. Now, the Darshanas, the philosophies as philosophies. I mean, just for the sake of translating it. Philosophies. Okay. So there are 6 Āstic schools. Āstic is Asti. So the etymology of Āstic is Asti. Asti is it is. Asti is the verb to be. So it is to be. It is. So what is Āstika in today's Hindi? Āstic is somebody who believes in God, and Nastik is somebody who doesn't. So theistic and atheistic. But what it means here, Āstika are those philosophies that do not believe in the authority of the Vedas.
Okay.
So they come out of the Vedas and consider the Vedas as the supreme source of all knowledge. And there are 6 major philosophies that believe in the Vedas and that come out of the Vedas. Which are these? The first is Nyaya philosophy, which is about 600 BC old. And it talks about logic and epistemology and debate. So it leads to moksha, enlightenment, through logic. So somebody who is very logical and can't surrender and can't do bhakti and devotion and all of that.
Very
Then there is Vaisheshika, which is very closely related to Nyaya. It talks about atomism and metaphysics. So what the world is made of. Nyaya talks about how to know, right? Logic and
how to come to the conclusions of Vedanta.
Yeah. No, not Vedanta. Vedanta is different.
The Vedas, sorry.
Yeah. How to know basically any knowledge.
Okay.
And Vaisheshika is what is.
Yeah. How it's
Nyaya
made.
is
how it's made
Nyaya is how to know, and Vaisheshika is what is. What is the known? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So it talks about atoms and metaphysics very deeply, very sophisticated. Vaisheshika, and it is very.
And we will cover all of them.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. And then comes Samkhya. This we've already covered. I've made a presentation on this. We've also done a lecture with a guest, Mr. Sushant.
Yeah, we did a master class also with that one, and it was mind-blowing shit, man.
Yeah, the presentation.
For anybody who hasn't seen it, check it out, please. It's
we've
very
done a
interesting.
presentation.
I guess lots of Indians know already a lot about it, but there was also quite some stuff I guess Indians wouldn't know about and would be very surprised to hear.
Yeah, the students of philosophy would know what Samkhya is, but the depths of it would also be, I think, new for them. But a layman, for somebody who's just, seeing our videos just out of maybe the first time or out of curiosity, I don't think they would know what Samkhya is. The commoner would not know. Okay. Sankhya is a dualistic philosophy. It also talks about metaphysics and psychology and evolution of the world. But and it divides creation into two parts. And it is atheistic. It doesn't believe in God, but it believes in the Vedas. Purusha and Prakriti are two principles that create the world, the universe, life, everything. We've done this.
As we argue also in our master class, it's not quite dualistic. It has also some non-dualistic part in itself.
It is not. So Samkhya
you can see that in the other video.
There's a Vedic Samkhya, the one that comes from the one that we've done. The one that Kapila has given us, the philosopher was called Kapila, Rishi Kapila. That is atheistic to some extent. I don't believe it is atheistic, but it is labeled atheistic because it doesn't explicitly talk about God. The other Sankhya is in Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It's called Samkhya Yoga. That is also Sankhya, but that is theistic Sankhya. It explicitly talks about God because God himself is giving that knowledge. Like Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna, which is a god, Hindu god. Okay. Not going too deep into this and proceeding. Then comes yoga. I think everybody knows what yoga is, but they don't, because yoga is not asana, not just asana.
No, yoga is not even union, I guess.
Those who have seen our videos would know these are references. Okay. So yoga is for disciplining the mind and the body, and then ultimately be enlightened. So all of these philosophies, the objective of their existence is to lead you to moksha, enlightenment. That is why they exist, through their own ways, in their own ways. If you're a logical person, you can be enlightened through logic. If you are metaphysical, if you're into atoms and science, you can be enlightened through Vaisheshika. If you are into psychology, then Sankhya can do stuff for you. If your discipline is your path in yoga, then comes Mimamsa, which is purely ritual, just ritual. So the ritual part of Vedas are in Mimamsa. Mimamsa is also called Purva Mimamsa, which is past Mimamsa, and then comes Uttar Mimamsa. Vedanta is called Uttar Mimamsa. Uttar is later. So the early part of the Vedas talk about ritual. So Purva Mimamsa, early. And the last part of the Vedas, the Upanishads, are called Uttar Mimamsa.
Okay.
Which are the Upanishads,
later,
which are called Vedanta. Vedanta does not talk about ritual at all. It talks about philosophy, Gyan, knowledge, the essence of the Vedas, the philosophical essence.
Gnosis.
Yeah. Now, Vedanta can be dualistic, non-dualistic, or qualified dualistic. Dvait, Advait, and Vishisht Advait. It is qualified. dualism, which I'm not going to explain in this episode moving forward. Okay, the Nyaya, the very first philosophy. This is about 500 BC old. This is not right. This
Gautama.
time,
Gautama is Buddha, no?
Buddha's name it was also Gautam, but this is not
But
that
also
Gautam.
Gautama is not the same.
There's
Yeah,
another
okay.
Gautam. So there are
Okay.
3 Gautams that are very important in the Indian philosophy. Gautam Buddha, this Gautam, whose full name I can't remember for now. And then there's Maharishi Gautam, who was one of the Saptarishis, 7 great sages, who were the first to speak the Vedas. And they gained the knowledge of, gained this knowledge directly from Lord Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
But this Gautam is somebody else. He's another Rishi.
Right.
And he lived around 600 BC. This is not the right time period. I apologize for that. So the Nyaya is the school of logic and epistemology. As I said, talks about logic.
As you said. Yeah.
And it is concerned with pramanas, which is a means of valid knowledge. So what are the sources where you can get correct knowledge, right knowledge from? Direct perception, inference, comparison, and testimony. Then it talks about 16 elements. Shodasha Padartha, which is 16 elements. It divides the world into 16 parts.
Okay.
Not the world, divides knowledge into 16 parts.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
as we talked about in nosology or epistemology, whereas we have it here, it's a science of knowledge. Like what kind of knowledge is perceivable, what kind of knowledge can we know, and how do we know it? Yeah.
And next episode will be on Nyaya philosophy.
Nice.
So stay tuned.
It's going to be cool.
And it is a very, very sophisticated philosophy. Very, very sophisticated. It'll take years to study all of it and to understand all of it. And then comes Vaisheshika, which is in fact, if Nyaya is the map, Vaisheshika is the vehicle. It talks about atoms, atomism, and metaphysics. Very deeply into that. Very, very deeply. And it was developed by Rishi Kannad. Rishi Kannad, not Kannad. Kannad. This confused me.
Canada.
His name was Kannad.
Canada.
Kannad.
He was from Canada.
Kannad.
He's a Canadian.
According to the transliteration, the pronunciation is Kannad, but my teachers taught me Kannad. So, Kannad. Talks about realistic metaphysics and categorizes. Again, it makes categories, padarthas, as Nyaya does. So, substance of the world, quality of the world, motion of the world, and universality of the world. Or basically, metaphysics as deep as you can go. The world is made up of eternal. The world is made up of eternal atoms, paramanu. So it talks about atoms, 500 BC. Okay.
Crazy.
Samkhya, we've done this in one of the episodes. You can check it out. It talks about dualism. It divides the ultimate reality into 2 parts, Purush and Prakriti. And when they come into contact, the world is created. And where Purusha is pure consciousness and Prakriti is the material source. It is the first cause of all causes. It is cause of all causes. That doesn't really have a cause. So it is eternal. And Purusha can be compared with consciousness of Brahman to some extent. Rishi Kapila gave this philosophy. And liberation happens when Purusha realizes that it is not Prakriti. Purusha is your true self. Prakriti is the material nature which you are not.
Yeah, but which we constantly identify with.
Yeah. And once you've stopped identifying, that is when Kaivalya happens, which is liberation, according to Samkhya. And then you attain moksha. So it divides reality into 25 tattvas, 25 elements. So check out the presentation on Samkhya. It is actually very good.
Our masterclass.
And then there's yoga. So again, yoga literally means union. The union of this individual self with the cosmic self. Right.
Right.
And this was practiced by this was practiced by the rishis even when the Vedas weren't, written down and were passed orally. This is ancient. But they were first systematized. How the Vedas were systematized by Vedavyas, yoga was systematized by Patanjali, who was another sage, Rishi Patanjali. And he wrote the Yoga Sutras, which gives us the Ashtanga Yoga. The students of yoga would know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and we have a whole season of classical Ashtanga yoga with our guy Sushant, our philosophy teacher, when we were in Rishikesh in our time. It's beautiful, man. Check it out.
Yeah.
The classical Ashtanga Vedanta, Ashtanga yoga. Yeah.
So it talks about social codes, personal codes, asana, pranayama.
Yeah, we
breathwork.
made videos with all of them, like just about yamas, just about niyamas, just about the asanas, just about the pranayama, and so on. So it's very going into detail.
2 hours for each of them.
What?
2 hours for each of them. So it is. You can expect a lot of detail.
There's a lot to talk about each and one of them. And also, what I want to notice here is for Ishvara, for the word God here. If you check out the etymology of that, you will come to some nice conclusions also, because we have many links to other goddesses in the ancient world, and the Sumerians, and also the ancient Greeks. And the word is connected to a plant and the stars. So we have this STR root, which is in the Indo-Germanic or Indo-European language, used for stars and also for one specific plant. So check it out.
Yeah, we do bridge the East and the West with etymology as well. Yeah. And how Vaisheshika is made on the grounds of Nyaya, yoga is made on the grounds of Samkhya. So again, Samkhya is the roadmap and yoga is the vehicle. Yoga is the practical stuff and Samkhya is the theoretical stuff.
Theoretical.
Samkhya tells you what is, and yoga tells you how to go to that. Through all of that. Right? Samkhya gives you the 25 elements and yoga guides you through each of them.
Right.
To self-realization. Right. Pratyahara is sense withdrawal. Dharana is one-pointedness. Dhyana is continuous one-pointedness. And samadhi is super consciousness. And afterwards, eventually, enlightenment happens. This is
Right.
Yoga is a very disciplined path, very difficult.
Absolutely. And we talk even with our guys Sushant when we do the videos for each and one of them. In the Samadhi one, we talk also about the different stages of Samadhi, because Samadhi is not enlightenment, it's not liberation, it's something which is actually not that difficult to achieve. But then there's still something to go on.
Yeah. There are multiple types of samadhis also. Some samadhis you accidentally, slip into for maybe 1 or 2 seconds. But some samadhis happen when nothing else but you exist. And then you sustain it for long. And then not even you exist. And in the final stage of samadhi, you die. Literally. Your body, you abandon your body. Your soul leaves. You die in that samadhi. So again, it is if you want to go deep into that, we already have an episode and we will make more episodes on it. And you can also refer the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali.
Right.
And then there is Purva Mimamsa. As I said, it's called what was it? Mimamsa. Yeah. Purva Mimamsa is Mimamsa. Uttar Mimamsa is Vedanta.
Right.
Purva Mimamsa talks purely about ritualism. Karma Kand. Karma is action. Kanda is a chapter or a section. The action section of the Vedas, where you do something.
What, you're gonna do something to be liberated?
Yeah, like a no, I mean ritual, like perform a ritual or something.
Right.
Yeah. So ritual, like sacrifices, fire sacrifices, like you put food into fire and offer it to the gods. That kind of stuff. And then there is Uttar Mimamsa, which is the philosophy of the Upanishads, Vedanta. So Vedanta focuses on Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutra. Okay, so according to Vedanta, knowledge can be gained through 3 different ways, which is Shruti, hearing. So Shruti are the Vedas and
as we explained before,
and other scriptures, Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is also Shruti, and Smritis, which are the Puranas and the epics, basically, and Puranas also. Puranas are also important scriptures of Hinduism. And then there is
I would notice just the prose Edda and the poetic Edda and the North mythology would consider as Shruti.
Maybe.
Yeah, and because they are passed down from hearing as well.
Okay, yeah, so they're also Shruti. But not our Shruti.
No.
Because we didn't Shruti
Maybe.
it.
Maybe there are some connections there. They have like kind of similar gods and
yeah.
Well,
maybe we could explore that. And the third source of knowledge, according to Vedanta, is Nyaya, which is logical reasoning, which is given in the Brahma Sutras. So the Brahma Sutras logically tell you what is and what is not.
All right, I never heard of that. I know the Upanishads, I know the Bhagavad Gita. It's a really famous books of famous texts all around the world, I would say. But the Brahma Sutras I never heard.
Right. The Brahma Sutras has 555 aphorisms, 555, 555 aphorisms, and 4 chapters. And one of the chapters, the second chapter, is specifically countering the counters. I mean, for anybody who questions Vedanta's knowledge, it logically refutes that. No, you are wrong. So you tell me I am wrong, that I tell you no, you are wrong, but I give you logics for that, and then I refute you, and then I tell you that my knowledge is supreme. That is what Brahma Sutra does.
Okay. Oh, reminds me, there's a guy in Christianity. What was his name? I don't. Some saint. I don't know. But he wrote a book. It's called Against All Heresies. And there he is also doing the same thing. He's like telling you what all the different religions, different belief systems believe, and refuting them to tell you that Christianity is the only one who makes sense.
Yeah. So this is what Brahma Sutra does. And it is a wonderful scripture. It is easily available everywhere. It has translations also. So if you'd like, you can go through it. Maybe you can make an episode on that.
Yeah.
And it explores these scriptures explore the nature of Brahman, Atman, Moksha. Who am I? Again, this is what they're concerned with. Nothing else. How to end suffering? Who am I? All of that. So Vedanta has 3 schools: the Advaita, which is a non-dualistic; Advaita, non-dualistic, which is given by Adi Shankaracharya. I've also made a presentation on Adi Shankaracharya. You can check that out. It's called Adi Shankaracharya, the greatest Hindu philosopher. Adi Shankaracharya proposed that everything is one, all is one, one is all. And Brahman alone is real, and the world is Maya, illusion. Jagat Mithya Brahma Satyam. That is what he said. That the world is Mithya, fake, and Brahma is Satya. So what it is like a bulb, like a light bulb. So the light is inside the bulb. What is outside is just a reflection of that light that is reflecting upon a surface. So the real light is not on the surface, it is inside the bulb. Similarly, this world is not real. It is just a reflection of the real world. And the reality is something else, which is Brahman, pure consciousness. But this metaphysics is just a reflection of the consciousness.
Yeah.
That is his philosophy. Then there is a Vishisht Advaita philosophy, qualified non-dualism. Why qualified? Because it says it is that the world is one, but it is also two. I mean, this world is fake, but it is also real, because you cannot say this is fake, right? Because if I slap your face, it will hurt you, and you won't say the slap was fake.
Right.
So it says this is also true, that is also true.
Beautiful. I like the balance there.
Yeah, I'm putting this in a very concise form. This philosophy is huge. It talks about panentheism, all in God. Everything is inside God, but not everything is God. Vishisht Advaita is a panentheistic philosophy.
Okay.
It says God is God is beyond us, but he is also us.
Yep.
And Advaita says God is us.
Yeah.
Vishisht Advaita says he is beyond us, but also us. Dvaita Vedanta says he's completely beyond us. He is not us.
Yeah.
Dualism. It was given by Madhvacharya.
So the qualified non-dualism also a bit like the story of Jesus, where he has like this human nature and also the divine nature.
Sounds like that. And all 3 of them are accepted in the Indian philosophy. None of them is refuted. That no, Dvaita. It depends on you, on your nature. If the thought of dualism appeals to you, then you can follow Madhvacharya's philosophy. If it doesn't appeal to you, if you believe that all is one, if that is your experiences through psychedelics or meditation or whatever, then you follow Advaita Vedanta. If you believe that no, both of them exist, then you follow Vishishta Advaita. So nothing is rejected.
Sure. Yeah, we don't want to give any conclusion here, you know, whatever you guys believe it. Whatever you come through, realize, do it.
Yeah. So that was 6 major philosophies of Hinduism that believe in the authority of the Vedas. And now the 3 Nastic philosophies, which are philosophies that rejected the Vedas, and non-Vedic philosophies. They said, no, we don't believe in the authority of the Vedas. We don't take the word of the Vedas as it is. We don't believe the rishis. We want to find out by ourselves what the truth is. And one of the guys who rejected the Vedas was Gautam Buddha, or actually no, the Buddha.
Yeah.
Yeah. He gave us the 4 noble truths and the 8-fold noble path. And then comes Jainism, which was founded by Mahavira, and it greatly focuses on non-violence. Lot. And then the most interesting philosophy is the Charvaka philosophy that only believes in pleasure. It is a materialistic school. So much so that it is called hedonism. And hedonism is a derogatory term for somebody who only believes in sensual pleasures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even this is also a philosophy in the Hindu system, but it is now extinct.
Yeah, well, it's not really extinct. Not in the West, you know. We have this like really materialistic world view over here. I don't. Well, of course, we have also Christianity, but you know, it goes down since like 200 years or something with the religious beliefs in the West. So I would say most are very materialistic, have a very materialistic worldview, and
yeah, but I think
reminds me.
This is where intention plays the part. Why Charvaka philosophy came into being was to end suffering. But there is no such intention currently in today's world. We are very materialistic, but maybe not for the purpose of ending suffering.
Yeah, no, there's not a goal really. You know, it's just like the conclusions we come through leads to this worldview maybe. But also reminds me also of the saying of Albert Einstein, who said, "Science without religion without science is blind or leads to materialism, and science without religion
without science.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this is the way. So religion without science leads to idealism, and science without religion leads to materialism.
Yeah. True. And yeah, so moving into the philosophies. Buddhism. I think we've heard of the philosophy, but we don't really know deeply what the principles of this philosophy is and how it evolved. It was founded by Siddhartha Gautam. Again, these time periods are not very accurate, but let's just go with it for now. 600 BC.
Really highly debated. Nobody really knows.
Yeah. So according to this particular source, it is 600 BC old. It is older, according to some of us. But anyway, the core teachings of this philosophy are the 4 noble truths. I've done a short on this particular 4 noble truths, which is dukkha, which is suffering. Sarvam dukkham, life is suffering. And then there is a cause of suffering. There is a cessation of suffering. and there's a path to cease the suffering. Magga. So dukkha, samudaya, there was another, and then magga.
Right. This is what the Buddhist symbol also resembles. If you see this, like this wheel that has 8 stripes. So how do you say it? It resembles the eightfold path.
The chakra, the wheel of Dhamma
wheel
chakra.
Of Buddhism. Yeah, I don't know how to say
chakra.
it.
Yeah. Dhamma chakra. Yeah.
Dharma chakra. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it talks about the 4 noble truths are dukkha, samudaya, nirodha, and magga. Suffering is universal, almost universal. There is a cause of suffering. There is an end to the suffering, which is some nirodha. And then there is a path to end the suffering, which is the Eightfold Noble Path, which is this is the only way to end suffering, according to Buddhism. The Buddhists say that this Eightfold Path is the only path that leads to non-suffering.
Right.
And Buddhists believe in anatta. This is Pali. In Sanskrit, it becomes anatma, which is there is no atma. There is no self. There is no permanent self. Everything is impermanent. Anicca. That is their principle. Anicca. Everything is impermanent. Not even the self is permanent.
Right. So they reject also like the Brahman or something, or like the Purusha and Samkhya. Yeah.
There is nothing. They believe in nothing. They don't believe in Atma. They don't believe in Brahman. They do believe in rebirth, but again, they don't get too deep into it, because it is they don't like to discuss metaphysics. Just suffering
really
and how to end
nihilism
suffering.
also.
Yeah, just concerned with the living truth now, here, now, how to end suffering now, and not in the next life, because they don't believe in the next life. They do, but they don't talk about it.
This is why it's also said it's a very agnostic work.
Okay, and it says that it believes in cause and effect. Right. So I'm not gonna go deep into pratitya samutpad, because this would take a lot of time.
Yeah, no, this is just a quick overview. We can go into detail with that one in another video. We will, for sure.
And in Jainism. Jainism is a very extreme philosophy, I would say. Because a Jain, if you ever came across one, they're very common in India. I'm not sure about the West. They make sure that not even the insects on the ground, you don't even step on them.
Right.
And if you do prayaschit. You how to translate prayaschit? You pay for your sins by giving yourself
pain.
How
did you do that? By giving yourself pain. So okay.
So they're very extreme.
So a bit like the monks who castrate, hit themselves.
So they won't. I'm not sure if they hit themselves, but they do like if I unknowingly sinned, then I will not eat for the next 5 days. I will fast for 5 days or 7 days or whatever.
Yeah, right. So they make themselves suffer also.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, we see them quite a lot actually. I think in Germany there are some. As a community.
Interesting. That is interesting, because they're a minority in India, and outside of India, this. It's nice to know.
But India, it's fucking huge.
Even the minorities are majorities.
Out of the real world,
yeah. Intense. Yeah. So they believe in the soul, but liberation is found through self-purification, again through prayaschit. And they believe in karma a lot. In fact, very extreme about it, karma. They don't want to harm even the microorganisms. So if you have to clean your toilets, they won't put, not all of them, of course, I've seen some. They won't put toilet cleaners, because toilet cleaners kills every microorganism, even the ones that are not harming you. So they put another
like
organic.
Antibiotics or something.
Yeah. They put another organic cleaner that doesn't kill all bacteria. Right. Right faith, right knowledge, right conduct. This is what their principles are.
Mm.
Then there is Charvaka.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit
Lokayat.
of Zoroastrianism with the good deeds, good speech, good thought.
Yeah. Good deeds, good speech, good thoughts is also a part of yoga. Zoroastrianism is also very interesting philosophy.
Yes, interconnected, of course.
Yeah. Parsi, which is it comes from Iran, I believe.
Yeah. From the Aryans as well, like the Rig Veda.
Yeah, the Indo-Aryans. Oh, sorry, the Persian Aryans. I forgot the word. Iranian Aryans. Yeah. Okay, so they moved out of India and westwards against the belief that they came from Europe. But again, that is a discussion for a separate time.
Yeah.
Charvak, Lokayat. Loka is the world. So worldliness. It not only rejected the Vedas, but also it rejected rebirth, karma, moksha, enlightenment, Atman and Brahman, everything, rejected everything. They said, what is here now is the only truth.
Right.
And why this philosophy started was to keep people in the here now, which is good. But it devolved. The philosophy was not understood. So there's a very
I think
pop. Yeah,
I think it gave us what we call science today, you know. This kind of thought progress we have in the Renaissance also in Europe.
Yeah.
In the not in the Renaissance, in the awakening. How you say it? I don't know.
Zeitgeist.
Yeah, but there's this period like when they start to reject the truths of the church and start to discover science. This is the same thought process they went through. They reject everything what the church says, what just Christianity claims, and start their own conduct.
Yeah, but Charvak doesn't even is not even concerned about science. It is only concerned about pleasure.
Yeah, I'm just saying that they have the same thought process. They reject everything what was before and say, okay, we gotta do it by ourselves. We gotta discover everything by perception, by science, by the scientific method. You know, and then you go from there.
Okay. Yeah, that is the thought process for all three of these, because all three of these rejected the Vedas, right? Like they rejected the church. They rejected the Vedas. And, Buddhism flourished in India in a specific time frame, in a specific time period. But then they became too extreme because they started to, impose their own philosophy on the others as well. Like, no, Atma really does not exist. Man, shut up. And this is the only truth. And when that happens, of course, there is resistance. And then the Nyaya debaters and the Vaisheshika debaters, who were great debaters, and also Adi Shankaracharya, who is a Vedantic philosopher, they played a major role to kick Buddhism out of India. So that is when Buddhism nearly became extinct. They kicked them out because they were against the Indian thought. And they did not want that, of course. And they kicked them out, and then Buddhism flourished. The Buddhism went to Nepal and not Nepal, the Central Asia, Thailand, and all of that.
Right.
So their philosophy can be described in one sloka, which is sutra, which is Yada jivam sukham jivet, rinam kritvam gritam pivet. For those who understand, must be laughing. This is Yada jivam sukham. This is Sanskrit. Yada jivam sukham jivet. As long as you live happily. Rinam kritvam gritam pivet. So So ghee, you know what ghee is, right? Clarified butter. So it was considered a luxury in the Vedic times because it has a lot of medicinal properties. It is very healthy and it is very hard to make, so it was very expensive. And since it comes from the cows and cows are holy, ghee was also holy. And the gods also liked ghee. So it says, Yada jivam sukham jive rinam kritam kritam pivet. As long as you live, live happily. Rinam kritam kritam pivet. Rinam. Take debt and drink ghee. So drink ghee even if you have to take debt for it. It doesn't talk about repaying the debt. It says, it says take a debt, take a loan from somebody and buy ghee and then have ghee and live your life to the fullest.
Like
don't care about repaying the loan.
Take as long as you live, you can and give nothing back.
Yeah. Live life to the fullest. So there is no scope of suffering. But the philosophy is now extinct due to obvious reasons. And that's it. This was Indian thought in one presentation, as much as I could put.
Beautiful. Tiny Madhev. Beautiful. You did very well, my tiny friend. So thank you guys again for your attention, for your time. And we will get into all of these philosophies. We did get in some of them already. Check out our other videos about yoga, about Samkhya, about Gnosis, and see you soon. Get ready for more philosophy.
Namaste, boys.